Command Point is sponsored by Crossfire Games. Use code CommandPoint25 at checkout to get 5% off your next purchase. Link in the description.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Command Point. And we are on the 8th day of Kill Team here, and I'm joined by, fresh from the World Championships, Bart Lewandowski, famous Void Dancer player. Bart, how's it going?
Not too bad, thank you. How are you, Shane?
Pretty good, pretty good. It's we're in the holiday season now, so I mean, I'm like buying gifts and just getting through that process, and
Yeah, yeah, busy time, busy time. And you do have the 12 days of Kill Team to record, which, by the way, great concept, great format. Love the previous two iterations, so I'm glad to be part of this one.
yeah, I appreciate that. That means a lot. We get a lot of positive feedback, so I'm happy that people are enjoying it. But you're known for playing Void Dancers, and you just had a very good run with them at the World Championships. So I wanted to get into that. I mean, for somebody that's looking at teams right now, and maybe they're new to Kill Team, or they're not new to Kill Team, and they're just trying to pick a new team. In your opinion, why should somebody look at Void Dancers? What about the team appeals to you specifically, Bart?
So there are a few things that make this team, like I'd say, very much playable, to say the least. One of which would be that you do have 8 operatives with 3 APL, so that's 24 APL. And you may get some counteracts into mid-range or horde teams, and you do always out activate or almost always activate elites. So that's one of the appeals to me. The other one is that you do have 7-inch movement, you do have a 3-inch dash and a 25 mm base, and you do always climb everything for 1 inch, which makes them one of the fastest, is not, if not like exactly the fastest team in the game. And I'd say this is very important because what that allows you to do, that mobility, is that if you don't want to be charged by your enemy, then versus most teams, I'm excluding other elves as well, versus most teams that you expect to face in the current field, if you are charged, that means that you either made a mistake or you wanted to be charged, or someone overextended and you did not punish them for that. So these are the things that I see like, okay, great mobility. You can play with razor wire barricades a lot and gain a lot more out of them than other teams because you have the smallest bases in the game. And then yeah, free APL. The fact that you play your tack up almost like on your way to doing something else during the game. That's great. I love that thing.
Perfect. Yeah, that's a good answer. I mean, they're definitely a. I mean, the speed you highlighted is one of the main appeals I've found for a lot of Void Dancer players. So I guess for you, when you started playing them in third edition, when you were kind of learning and kind of like relearning the ropes with Void Dancers and with the new rules, what is kind of a good piece of advice you could give to somebody that's just stepping into the team for the first time, like a kind of something that clicked for you maybe after a few games where it was like a light bulb went off and it was like, oh man, I wish I was thinking about it this way on my first game. That type of piece of advice that you would give to a new player to just kind of jumpstart their game a little bit.
Well, I'd say that I personally decided to take a step back because like at first I couldn't find a team for myself in the third edition. I didn't like the way that novitiates look, but even though that I think they're amazing, they're very strong. I think that the way they have been designed is a bit toxic. So I didn't want to play them personally. And then I found it a bit hard to jump on the other teams that I enjoyed, and I was so fed up with playing commandos, like I'm not touching them anymore. And then I would like they decided, oh, let's give void dancers, let's give clowns a try. And then had to spend some time thinking about how do you actually win the game in this edition? Because it's slightly different. It's like not even slightly different, it's significantly different to how you would win the game in the previous edition. And you can think about the crit up, the hat, the tack up, and the kill up in a very specific way. And void dancers are good in a way that when it comes to kill up, if you look at that kill grade table, they look quite decent in comparison to other kill grades when it comes to the amount of the models that you get in a team. And when you look at a Tack Op, I always run recon with them, and you don't really score less than 8 points unless someone wrecks you. And that's really good because sometimes if you have like a low scoring game, like let's say 14 to 12, 14 to 13, just for sake of argument, and then you look at your victory points and you see, oh, I scored 9 out of my 14 points on Tack Ops, which I do just on my way, as I said before, to actually position my model somewhere else. And it's like I do score those points, and I don't really need to play and focus my play around that. And then when it comes to crit up, again, you've got 8 models with 3 APL. So when you're facing a horde, many of your horde opponents will look at you and say, to me, you're like 8 Marines, just slightly squishier and with way more mobility and 3 APL everywhere. You kill me in melee, you kill me in shooting. How do I face that? So I think these three things combined, considering how you win the game, is what makes them quite okay, not like to say the least. I think they're one of the top 5 teams as of now. And this is what makes them like actually really good. And then the other thing is that what I consider going to Worlds is that everyone knows that the boogeyman is the Warp Cavern, the Legionaries. People say Inquisition. Some people say Novitiates as well, or many people say Novitiates as well. But like we, interestingly, didn't have too many of them, probably thanks to Plague Marines at Worlds. But then you look at those elite teams and the Inquisition, and you try to consider them as a Void Dancer player, and you realize, okay, I'm quite decent into Legionaries and Warp Cavern, and I'm also good into Inquisition. And okay, so what do I really lose to from the top of the metagame? I lose to Necrons. And this is what makes them, like, I'd say, a very good choice into current metagame. Like hopefully this current metagame won't last too long, but because I'd like to see some adjustments. But yeah, like I think considering what we currently expect to face at the highest tables of the tournament, this is a good team.
Very good. I mean, that's a super comprehensive answer. So thank you for that, Bart. And I wanted to touch on loadouts, I guess. So in terms of list building, there's not a ton going on there with Void Dancers, but there's tiny little things you can make. Mostly, I think between weapons or when to, whether or not you're going to take the Shadow Seer and Death Jester every game. If there's ever a place to drop it. So how can you comment a little bit on the loadout decisions when playing Void Dancers?
So that's a very good question because at first when I read the rules, I was like, why did they take away my balance on my blades? I love my balance so much. And then I realized that, oh, Severe is actually really good if you want to make sure that you will always proc the curtain falls, because this is the one that requires you to have a crit. So if you have the blades, you can, like, as long as you get one hit, that means that you will have a crit. And the worst that will happen in your combat is you're gonna charge, you're gonna punch them once for 5, and then you're gonna fall back for 3 and shoot them. So or do a mission action or whatnot. So this is what makes me love blades into most teams in this metagame. Like if you face most of I'd say all of the elites, you probably you want to take blades, and obviously the leader, like, take, in my opinion, takes power weapon all the time. But other than that, you want to take blades across the board. And if I was to think, okay, so when do I drop the blades? And this is why you need to start thinking about, like, say, the shield guys from the Extraction Squad, and therefore the Inquisition as well, because I would expect Inquisition opponents to pick up Exaction against me more often than not. Then you've got some teams that there was another one, Necrons, because they turn off all of your fancy crit retains or rending and all of that shit with that Psychomancer ability. So this is where you probably want to take the brutal weapon. And into some teams, you'll take the rending one, and some teams would be probably like commandos, maybe goats. I'm not so sure about that. But even then, I would still stick to blades on the gunners, Neuro Disruptor and Fusion Pistol, just to make sure that I always can do the one of the most powerful things with that team: charge, hit for 5, fall back for 3, and shoot him in the face.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very good one. Um, and I guess pivoting earlier, you mentioned a little bit recon tack ops. So did you want to touch a little bit on how you like to choose your tack ops?
So this is where I'm probably not going to give you any comprehensive answer because my plan is always the same. I always take recon and I always take plan beacons with this
Mm-hmm.
team, just because you've got so much mobility that you kind of like score 8 or 9 points almost always. I always go with primary or being the tack up. So whenever someone faces Harlequins, I would say that if their opponent didn't pick plan beacon, they decided to try to try to make their game a bit harder for themselves because this team is, as we said, so mobile that it is very easy for you to just move up 7, plant the beacon, dash away, or charge someone, punch them once, fall back even deeper into the side of the board and plant the beacon there, or move 1 inch up and then a few inches sideways and plant the beacon on the roof. Right? Like it's actually very easy to score a lot of points with that. If you think about Elite, you probably want to have a few models that will burn through some of their activations when you play against Elites. And these models would be those that, like, oh, I'm just gonna dash plant beacon and move away. I actually like moving away from the opponent a lot with this team because then they have to push further up the board, or otherwise they will not get to you or get to the objective points while you always stay safe that way. It is more interesting when it comes to Tack Ops when you start thinking about horde matchups like Inquisition, because there's a lot of them and you kind of want to kill them. And this is where I should probably mention, um, referring to your previous question around the operative selection or equipment, is that in certain situations, Inquisition is the matchup where I will drop the Dev Jester because a good opponent will never ever allow me to kill 2 models with my Dev Jester in one activation. And I need to make sure that as many of my dudes as possible can double kill in one of the activations. So there's that. But when it comes to Tac Ops versus hordes like Inquisition, I'd say like, well, this is where you have to consider where you want to take Plan Beacon, but in most cases you still do.
Mm-hmm.
But it will be way harder because you want to plan beacon at the same time kill them as quickly as possible. So your ideal plan would be to have the first few models um, double kill in their activation and some remaining models kill plus plan beacon if possible. So yeah, this is how I see that. But obviously it's not as straightforward, not as easy, and sometimes you have to like pivot from that plan. But so far, plan beacons all the way for me. I
Very
think
nice.
banned beacons, this edition is the new recover item.
Yeah, it's been the most common answer by far on these on the tack op question so far in the series. So not too surprised to hear that. Um, I guess I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your early game strategy. Typically, I would ask about turn one last edition, but I think it's a little different now, and you can sort of phrase it a little more like maybe turn one, early turn two, the early game as like a concept. What do you like to set up and stage? What are you hoping to accomplish in a lot of your games?
Uh, I actually think that with Void Dancer specifically, that may apply to other elf teams as well. What you want to do is start setting up your plan from turning point one, and it's more important for you than for other teams because let's say you've got that fusion pistol dude and you do recon dash, the reposition in scouting to be 3 inches deeper into the board. Now your opponent, especially when they play an elite team, they have to consider that if they move up the board too far, they will take that guy to the face turning point one, and it's a very long range. So because like if you even if you stand behind the door, so you're safe after that reposition and scouting, that's 3 inches from the reposition and scouting, then you've got 7 + 3 - 1 for the door. That's a very long range considering that you've got the extra 2 inches if you want to shoot someone within cover, like I mean in cover. So so that means that the elite player has to either stay very far back and not give you anything to shoot at, or give you something to shoot at, risking that they will get hit and killed. But the alternative is, as I said, is for them to stay very far back and not develop the board at all. So I think that the first ending point is extremely important from that perspective. And the other thing I like to set up is I like to think which models will be used to tap points or plant the initial beacons in turning point two, and I start setting that up in turning point one. So where possible, I'll stay outside of my opponent's range DP1 in a way that that player can dash, plant the beacon just on their side of the board, and then move 7 inches backwards to stay safe. So that is what I'm trying to set up in the early stage of the game. And of course, if you're getting a free kill, you might consider taking a free kill. But like many people say, oh, like Dev just is cooler now because you can still do that. Shoot, like you move, you pay a CP in the strategy gambit phase. You move, you shoot, and then you move away to stay safe. I almost never play that
Hmm.
because that requires you to spend a CP in a strategic gambit, and your opponent might very well not give you that shot. So I don't like that expense so early. Telegraphing it, oh, this is what I want to do. That would be so cool with the Death Jester.
So, speaking of cool plays, I mean, this is sort of a fast, like high flying team. They're a lot of fun to watch people play. What would you say is the coolest, flashiest Void Dancer play that you've ever pulled off in a game?
Well, many people say like, oh, the coolest play will be the one with charge, strike with the blade, fall back, and shoot them with fusion, because this allows you to take even the toughest Marines off the board in one activation, especially if they think, oh, I'm safe turning point one, so I don't need the ignore piercing one ploy. And then they overextend, they take that charge 5 damage and shoot with a fusion, and they die, and it's like, oops, I have 5 models now and he still has 8. And if I win the initiative, I can do the same thing to another Marine, and then if that happens, the game is almost always wrapped. But this is the cool play against elite players. But I do have one which I think I like even more versus horde teams, and this is a Shadow Sea play. Like I think Shadow Sea is, by the way, one of the coolest models in this team this edition, because they got such a great buff, and it gives you such a unique utility piece for your team that can also be super offensive. So with Shadow Sea, my favorite play would be to versus Horde specifically. So you have to wait them out a bit, DP1, when they will stage and do all of that. And then what you want to do is you want to go engage. And like most people say, oh, you're going engage. That will be very dangerous for your shadow, so you might lose them. But what you want to do is you want to throw a smoke, get into that smoke, and mirror of mind someone right in your last activation. So now they get one go before you mirror of minds them again in your counteract, and you stay in smoke. Um, it is a bit tricky to set it up on some boards or versus certain teams, but especially if they have ignore obscurity, then you probably don't want to do that. But if they don't, or they already activated the operative, and you get a juicy target for that mirror of minds, then I like to take it because that may give you a very good advantage turning point one.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, Bart, we're on the last question. A favorite of mine. So I want you to tell me. It's not going to be not this year. Not going to be a favorite song or a movie. But I want you to tell me your favorite, just a general holiday like treat. It could be a food. It could be a drink. It can be like a snack, like a cookie or something. What is something that you like to have in this time of year?
Well, um, so I come from Poland,
Hmm.
and in Poland, you traditionally have an absolute ton of food around Christmas. Now that I live abroad and I don't tend to spend my Christmas with my extended family as much, We obviously don't prepare as much food, but there's certain thing that I like and I enjoy a lot, and that would be a very specific vegetable salad that we eat in Poland. I don't know why, but it has become a phenomenon in a way that is very traditional. But if you hear about the ingredients, you'll freak out, I promise. So it starts with pickled gherkins, like proper sour, like gherkins, apple, um, hard-boiled eggs, and then what you've got else is carrot, leek, parsnip, um, green peas, salt, pepper, mayonnaise.
Okay.
I might have forgotten about something, but it's a very weird mix if you think about it. It sounds like potato, and everything is diced to the size of the peas from the can that you get. So it takes an absolute ton of time to
Hmm.
prepare it. If you make it at home, I used to prepare even like 8 or 10 kilo when I used to
Wow.
live with my family. So that was basically a whole day of dicing cooked veggies for me. So there's that, and then you mix it all together. It sounds as if you wanted to like take three different salads and bash them together into one, but I promise you, the taste is extraordinary. I love it.
That sounds awesome. I first of all, very awesome answer. Like that's I'm not going to get that answer from anyone else. That's the exact kind of thing I'm looking for. So
You're
very
welcome.
good. Yeah. So Bart, thank you for joining me today on the 12 Days of Kill Team. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on. If you guys want to see some of Bart's games, I believe you played on stream at least once or twice at the World Championships. And any shout outs you want to do before I wrap this up?
Yes, thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me over. It's an absolute pleasure to be part of this wider project, 12 Days of Kill Team. And when it comes to shout outs, I'd like to give a shout out to my team from London, the old ones, all the regular players I get to test against, and and the wider London community as well, because I think they all deserve it. I love you guys.
Awesome. So everybody, if you're watching and not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. We are very close to 10K. I think we're within 100 now. So yeah, and of course tune in tomorrow for the ninth day of Kill Team. We're nearing the end. It's almost Christmas. So everybody, have a good night and happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everyone. Thank you.